Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Before I introduce our knowledgeable seasoned panelists, let me start with my remarks on this Junta's election, where everyone recognizes or everyone sees this election as a sham election. So now, as we speak, the Junta's election has been taking place in Myanmar. Sorry. Maybe I should use this one as well. So as we speak now, the Junta's election has been taking place in Myanmar since 6 a.m. this morning. At the time, since then, I talked to my reporters and my own resources inside Myanmar. And since 2 a.m. in the morning in Yangon, the Sham townships, and the military and the security beef since 2 a.m. this morning. So, and then in the morning after 6 a.m., there are just spots, groups or lines, people, and going to the polling stations to cast their votes. But mostly, not a lot of people, which means that there are no many voters turning out until now. So this is kind of the, probably for the people, this is kind of the maybe, probably, I don't know exactly. Let's see until the end of the day. But it's kind of the silent, rejection or strike to be against the Junta's election. So regarding this Junta's election, my observation is that there are three groups in our country. The first group is not really interested in this election, the sham election. That group is the majority of the population, probably more than 90% of the population. They are not interested in this election at all. But the second group is so exciting. They are the political parties contesting this Junta election, which means that they are aligned with the military regime. Because they are excited, because they are hoping to get some seats in parliaments and some positions in the new government next year. And then the third group is the military generals. They have been strategizing or planning to hold this election. But as far as we know, they have already planned to form a new government, even including specific ministerial positions in the government, which will come out at the end of the March next year. So there are three groups. This is my observation. Why are Myanmar people not interested in this Junta's election? Because they have a solid experience with elections organized by military regimes in the past, especially over the past 4 decades. Since 1990, we have 4 elections. Out of those elections, the results of the 2 elections in 1990 and 2020 were not honored because pro-democracy parties, NLD, and some pro-democracy ethnic parties won by a landslide. That's why the Junta rejected the result. So, as you know, the 2010 election was rigged. And I would say that all of Myanmar people, we all have the election trauma. So they know that today's election is nothing more than another sham election. And definitely the military were trying to continue to rule the country. That is their political exit strategy. But, like it or not, today's election has been taking place in our country. And in the coming days, the junta will announce their military party, the USDP, has won by a landslide. And then, end of the March, and they will form a new government with these same brutal generals. But at the time, who will be wearing civilian outfits? So we will see definitely the new so-called civilian government April 1st, 2026. So, how will the international community, including our neighboring countries, deal with this new political landscape? So this is our panel, and this panel will try to look beyond the surface of the junta's sham election, how it will affect Myanmar's democratic prospects, regional geopolitics, and border stability with our neighboring countries, and individual freedom, including digital freedom, and the international community's responsibilities. Now we have 4 knowledgeable and seasoned panelists here with me. So let me introduce. The first panelist is Goten Joy, just beside me. He is an executive director of Myanmar Spring Revolution, election monitoring group, Spring Sprouts, right? And then today he will talk about how the junta's electoral system would badly impact the country's democratic prospect in the long term. In next 5 years, maybe more than that. Another panelist is a social and political scientist, Dr. Surachani. She is a visiting fellow at Yusof Ishaq Institute. She is also the interim director of the Center for Sustainable Humanitarian Action with Displaced Ethnic Communities at Chiang University. And then she is also a regular contributing writer to the ARD. She will talk about external actors, including China, Thailand, ASEAN, probably US on Myanmar issues. And the third panelist is over there on my right side, Mat Tai Tai Aung. She's a digital rights advocate from Myanmar Internet Project. MIP. MIP is monitoring internet access, censorship, and the junta's digital surveillance in Myanmar. She will explain about digital repression around the junta's elections. Makin Omar, last but not the least, is a seasoned pro-democracy activist since 1988. I would say that everyone who knows Myanmar and about Myanmar pro-democracy movement knows her and her work. So Makin Omar and Goten Joy are now involved in the junta's election monitoring group, Sham Election Tracker. So during this panel, she will focus on why this sham election is not a return to something similar to the post-2010 democratic transition in Myanmar. So, our first panelist is Goten Joy here. Before giving you a floor, let me ask you, how many times have you voted in Myanmar? Have you ever voted?
Yes, I did. So, in 2010 elections, since 2010 elections.
Really?
Yes.
So how many times?
So, 2 times.
2010?
3 times. 2010, 2015, and 2020.
Wow. So you get a lot of experience even as a voter.
Yes.
Floor is yours.
So I would like to.
I think, sorry, maybe you will have maybe 7, 8, up to 10 minutes. But shorter is better.
Okay.
Please.
So I'm trying to be brief. So as best as I can. So I would like to go some details into the election plan, some call it election plan, some call it election exercise with the sham, illegal sham election. So we all know that this election will not be free and fair. So even the lobbyists of the military junta are kind of admitting that this election will not be free and fair. So beyond being free and fair, so we look into the election, whether another expert we look into the election is whether the election is held periodically. So yes, this election is held periodically in 5 years, yes, but another key essence of the elections that are held periodically beyond being free and fair is whether this election will reflect the will of the people. This election, for sure, will not reflect the wills of the people. It is not by chance, it's by design. In these elections, millions of the voters will be disenfranchised intentionally by the military junta. So if you look into the details of this election plan, you will see the highest highest numbers of townships canceled wholly by this election, for this election. So in previous election, which I voted in 2010, 2015, 2020, in these elections, the complete townships cancellation, the numbers range from 10 to 15. In 2020 elections, we have 15 townships canceled wholly by the election commission. This time, 65 townships are wholly canceled by the military control electoral commission, which is 1/5 of the country. And they also canceled the village trust and what, even in the townships that they said they would hold the election. So they canceled about that 3,000 village trust and what, which is 1/4 of the whole country. But that's not just 1/5 or 1/4. If you look into the maps, the areas that the elections are canceled are half of the country. So that another evidence that you can see half of the country will not vote is the numbers of the polling stations. In 2020 election, there are nearly 40,000 polling stations across the country. So now this election, they can only open about 20,000 polling stations. So that's millions of voters disenfranchised intentionally by the military junta. And also the millions of the voters decided not to participate in this election that are very clearly seen in the previous 10 December silent strikes. So the whole nation became silent to show disapproval of this election plan. So another thing is that another evidence that this election will not reflect the will of the people is that popular political parties are disbanded, like NLD, SNLD are disbanded by the junta, and also other parties like TBNS decided to boycott this election. So that's another reason, another evidence that shows that this election will not reflect the will of the people. And another evidence yet is that the junta is using laws to forcefully suppress the dissident voices, critics of this election. So they're enacting a new law called Election Protection Law to silence the voice of the dissidents. So that's another way that they are suppressing this election. So the reason we host an election across the world is that we want to have the electoral representative government that reflect the wills of the people. This election is nothing but. So another aspect that I look into this election is whether this election will guarantee the democratic representation. That's another area that we need to deep dive into this election plan. So in every election fraud, starts months before the election. That starts with the gerrymandering of the constituency of constituencies. So in this election, the junta redraw the constituency boundaries. The constituency boundaries are nothing like the constituency boundaries in 2010, 2015, and 2020. So they gerrymander the constituency boundary not to, in most cases of gerrymandering, the plan, the idea, the motivation is to let a specific political party win this election. In this election, that plan is not that. The plan, they already know that the election will be won by USCP, but the plan is that they want to show the world that they can host an election across the country. So that's why they gerrymander the constituency boundary to mix the area where they can host the election and where they can't hold the election, so that they can say the world that they can hold the election across the country. Actually, what will happen after these 3 phases of election is that they will fill 88% of the parliament, while holding the election in only half of the country. How can you hold it? How can you fill the seats? How can you fill almost all the seats in the parliament just by holding the election in half of the country? So they do employ like a mixed member system, and mixed member representation system in electing new members of parliament. So that's a new system introduced in this election. So they call it a mixed member proportionate system. Actually, it is a mixed member majoritarian system. So the plan is to organize the election sporadically across the country and then fill the utmost numbers of seats in the parliament. So in doing that, they will use one vote for both systems. So they will use the first past the post vote to count for the PR system as well. So that's the way they try to favor the ruling party, the powerful party aligned to the military, which is USCP. So by doing that, this election will seriously lack the legitimacy, because this election will not be supported by the people, will disenfranchise a lot of the voters, millions of the voters. That can be evidenced in some initial evidence we have been seeing. So, which is one of them is the advance votes. Around the world, we have millions of diasporas, millions of the citizens, migrant workers living abroad. So only from that millions of migrant workers, diaspora community around the world, they only get 5,000, more than 5,000 advance votes. That's compared to the previous election. That's just a fraction of the previous numbers. And also, that's also evidence in the people checking the voter list. So even the junta admitted that the voter list will not be correct this time as well. So the reason the voter list will not be correct is the people are not checking the voter list because they don't approve of this election plan. And also this election will not just lack the legitimacy, it will also lack the integrity as well. They will use the electronic voting machine in this election, which is not independently audited by any independent organization or civil society. So, which will be used for the mass surveillance and also for the vote frauds in this election as well. So, last but not least, I would like to share a point, which is this election. We usually some observers usually compare this election with the 2010 election. So this election will not be an exit strategy for the junta. It will be the plan for strengthening its control on the power, hold onto the power, because these are evidence in the way they administer the political parties in the country. Even the political parties and candidates that seems to be loyalists of the military are suppressed in this election. So the candidates were disqualified, the parties are disbanded using the reason that are not justified, and also their appeals are rejected outrightly. So that's another evidence that they are suppressing its own loyalists as well. And this election, today, I think we should remember today as the day that the Myanmar changing, opening a new chapter. Today, we should remember today as the day that military started its own new front, new political front, beyond the military front. Today is the day that military initiated its new strategy, new tactic to suppress the people. So thank you, that's all my point.
Oh, thank you. I think just maybe one question from me, just to follow up. You talk about the how different between 2010 or 2020 and also now election. You are saying that this is not a political exit strategy for the junta, right? But this is trying to prolong their rule probably as long as they can. Just quick question, and do you really think they can really make it to rule their country forever?
So they have, as my previous panelists already shared, they have a different strategy, different plan to hold onto the power. In this time, they will have the non-elected military appointees in the parliament, and also the military-backed political parties in this parliament, and also they will have the military, and they will have a full control over the military with no oversight from the civilian. And also they are, in this election, they are creating not a democratic institution, they are creating the military-backed people, former general holding the public offices as a civilian, under the disguise of the civilian. So all of the elected officials through this election will be the tools of the commander-in-chief, which is who in Myanmar.
Thank you. So that's why they changed the political and literary system. Thank you. Our second panelist is Dr. Surachani, and the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. So I'm assigned to talk about external actors' reaction to the Sham election, and each of these external actors probably deserve 10 minutes on its own, right? But I will try my best to fit all of this within the 10 minutes allocated to me. So let me first kind of start us with establishing the parameter of the discussion here, that I think the things that we're seeing in terms of external actors' reactions to the elections probably culminates from the global geopolitical climate of the world that we're seeing now, right? We're living in a world that is more polarizing and more protectionist than ever before that we're seeing, right? Countries are pursuing their own self-interested goals more aggressively than ever as well. And so what it means for Myanmar, I think, is that some external actors, right, are so preoccupied with their own issues and other issues surrounding them as well, right? So they fail to articulate a clear stance on Myanmar elections. That being said, some governments have already, outright denounced the elections, but that's pretty much it, right? We were not seeing much of actions, but a lot of words, right? To me personally, the most bizarre and painful to watch is the U.S. Reaction, right? For instance, you guys are probably following the news about how the U.S. have now revoked the TPS, the temporary protection status, for right now it's 4,000, I think. The figure is 4,000 Burmese nationals, right? Citing that, Myanmar has been making progress in terms of governance, including, quote, the free and fair election. Mind you, right, this came after less than a week of the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs actually denounced the election, right, saying that the Myanmar election is, again, quote, a sham election. So such a big, mixed signal, right, coming up from great powers. And so mixed signal from great power like this can be pretty counterproductive for Myanmar, in my opinion, right? Especially when another powerful regional hegemon, aka China, we know that, is so determined to see this election happen. For instance, just to give you some example of why this matters, this mixed signal, why it matters, right? I think this may also push ASEAN countries' reaction towards an implicit support to the election by remaining silent. In the previous panel, although I don't speak Burmese, but I hear a little bit of ASEAN bashing, and we can go all day long about talking about why ASEAN failed on Myanmar. But at least insofar, ASEAN have not sent their official observers to monitor the election. Vietnam did. Vietnam is sending. Cambodia is sending their representative to monitor the election, and
Belarus.
also yes, Belarus as well. And by the way, Thailand, just to set the record straight, at least from checking my sources, Thailand have not sent any official election observers to watch the election, but actually it was being politicized. The idea is being politicized by the junta, saying that Thailand will send someone, right? Because it matters. We're the neighboring countries, right? Just want to put it out there. But ASEAN's remaining silent is probably what the junta needs. This is probably all it needs, right? They don't want an outright legitimizing from ASEAN. They don't care, right? Honestly, I don't think they care that much about ASEAN as long as China continue to support its legitimacy after the election. But ASEAN actually should care, because if ASEAN chooses to remain silent right now, it will face great difficulty not to invite back the junta's political representations after the election. Right? Think about that, because now ASEAN is not really saying anything about the election, right? So if the junta said, okay, now we have an elected government, can we finally have political representations into the bloc? ASEAN will have difficulty saying no, right? And that will greatly undermine the 5-point consensus crux, which already some of us already established that this is a flaw, agreement anyway, but it will be further undermined if ASEAN stays silent in this way, right? And it matters. I think it matters for the stability of the region, because in the end of the day, Myanmar is ASEAN problem. And we see that time and time again, even in the UN meetings, in different meetings, in the US and also other countries have made it clear that they support Myanmar-led, Myanmar-owned solution or ASEAN's initiative to Myanmar. So it basically means, we'll help you a little bit, but in the end, we'll leave it to ASEAN to decide what to do with Myanmar. Right? So in the end, I feel like ASEAN will end up having to deal with Myanmar and the fallout and the spillover and whatever that comes out of this Sham elections. Thailand is my country, and also another country who's been sending mixed signals all the way since the coup, right? And I think we will pay the price more than any countries in this world for what we're doing to Myanmar and with Myanmar, right? Especially if this strategic communication or miscommunication is proven to be a miscalculation, right? The hedging, the things that Thailand or Thai diplomatic circle value itself the most. You guys probably familiar with the term swirling bamboo, right? We're not picking sides. This has been the doctrines in the Cold War that make Thailand survive to a certain extent. But this will not work in this polarizing geopolitical climate anymore. If this election, for instance, leads to more instability in Myanmar, increased violence, we're already seeing that, right? And the mass exodus, Thailand will again be impacted. And I don't think we're ready. We don't have the policy that's set up to manage the amount of people who would flee the country, right? Because of conflict and things like that. At least from policy perspective, we're not ready. And I think I'd like to end my first round remark by emphasizing on the potential miscalculation in hedging, seen from external actors a little bit more. Actually borrowing from CSO Mint, his point actually in the previous discussion that we had. What we know now is that the SSPC won't be able to hold nationwide election. It's not representative of the will of the people. And it won't be able, even after the election, it won't be able to secure territorial controls in many key areas either. So what then, right? The question to external actors is, what then, right? For countries that hope for stability in Myanmar so that they can do business as usual, right? What now, right? So these questions not only should be posed to a big country like China, but the United States and the neighboring countries like Thailand as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it is a very good remark, but at the same time, I think the sad truth is ASEAN, neighboring countries, probably they all have been intimidated by the generous in Naypyidaw. I'm not sure whether this is the right way or not, but at the same time, I think the generous in Naypyidaw have been manipulating ASEAN countries and maybe all of the leaders in the world, not only this time, over the past 30, 40 years, because they always trying to, they manage to continue to rule the country. Thank you for your remark. Our panelist, next panelist, Mat Tai Tai Aung. Floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So apart from what my panelists mentioned about the political situation of the Sham election, this Sham election, in Myanmar, is also a very high-risk digital moment for us as well. During this period, digital repression becomes more aggressive, more coordinated, and more normalized. So what we are seeing are actually not new tools. What we are seeing are the existing systems being pushed harder, faster, and also with fewer restraints by the people as well. So when we talk about digital repression in Myanmar, it's not just isolated incidents, but it's actually an operational system. And when we talk about the operational system, it is actually a workflow right now by the military junta. It is actually deliberate, it is actually very layered, and it is actually designed to create fear even before people act. So when we talk about the digital repression for the state of Myanmar, the system actually have, from our observation, have three main components. So they are surveillance, information control, and also connectivity restrictions. So when we talk about surveillance, since the start of the military coup, the junta is expanding its arsenal on surveillance tactics and tools. So it started with enforcing SIM card registrations and also getting control of the telecom metadata, and also combining with monitoring of social media platforms and through other messaging apps as well. And we can see that the system has morphed into what is reported as a PSMS system, which is called the Person Scrutinization and Monitoring System, which is a digital surveillance system fueled and powered by data points contributed by many different departments by the military and enforced by the junta. So in the previous years and months, we have heard a lot about how people are being pinpointed and arrested by using these PSMS systems maintained by the military junta. And then what we are also seeing on surveillance is right now, using VPN in the country is not an option. It's a mandatory. But from the current recent investigations, it is actually found out that the military is using system which is from China called the Geach networks, which is the same as what powered the Great Firewall of China. So this surveillance for hire from China is also being implemented and used very thoroughly in the country as well. So in the surveillance, when we are looking at the digital repression surveillance component, we can see that there is tools, there are tactics, and there is a sense of fear that is being instigated by the military towards the people as well. And another component of the whole digital repression system is around information control. So when we talk about information control, it's not just about censoring on the platforms, on the internet as well. It's also more about flooding the information ecosystem. For instance, we are seeing coordinated pro-military networks utilizing a lot of social media platforms, and right now we are seeing them utilizing newer platforms such as short video platforms like TikTok and other things as well. And then we are also seeing pro-military influencers laundering military narratives, and we are seeing that a lot on different social media platforms. And of course, that leads to a lot of fake engagement, boosting certain messages, particularly surrounding around this Sham election. And this actually, when we talk about information control, censorship and flooding works hand in hand to design to exhaust and also confuse and intimidate the people in the country as well. So, another layer of the digital repression that we are seeing in Myanmar is selective connectivity or internet restrictions. So we no longer see only nationwide internet shutdowns. Instead, we are seeing cases where throttling in specific areas. So from yesterday and today, we have cases from a few regions that report about how their mobile data has been throttled and the data speed has been slowed down quite significantly. We are encountering platform-specific blocks. So, for instance, Meta, Facebook, or YouTube, or other very prominent social media platforms utilized by the majority public only are accessible through VPNs, and also connectivity disruption in key moments. So that might be, I mean, today we are also looking at the internet restrictions in various areas, and we have some reports from the ground reporting about the restrictions as well. So in the past, we have seen cases where signal jammers has been sent out in areas where there is a high political climate, and we are also expecting that this might happen today as well. So this digital repression around selective connectivity right now is also becoming very conditional. It's something that can be withdrawn quietly, selectively, and by the military, and this is also a big digital repression factor that we are looking into the current situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Matak. I think this is kind of the really new thing to us. What I mean is we never heard of this kind of digital repression in 2010 election, right? 2015 election, even 2020 election. We never heard about it. But you talk about the China's role in this digital surveillance. How about Russia and other countries? I think that's why maybe the hunter managed to repress the digital population, whatever. So how much that will have an impact on this election, maybe result or turning out?
So when we talk about the Russian role, I think, I mean, in our observation, it will fall mostly under information controls and around information flooding as well, because Myanmar military has been very closely working with Russia around propaganda narratives, and I always mention that the whole propaganda scene in Myanmar, Russian is where they are providing the narratives support, and China is actually providing the infrastructure support of that. So.
So that definitely is not only, I mean, flooding the disinformation and misinformation, right? Not only controlling the...
Exactly.
Thank you. Our last speaker, Maken Omar, is your floor.
Good morning, everyone. Just to follow on my co-panelists who actually shed the light on very important issues. For me, I would like to actually share with you more of the lesson learned from the past to compare with where things are now. Goten, you talked about, you were saying that the military junta now is by starting this Sham election today. You're saying that it is their political front, right? That's what you were saying. I think I see your point, because for the last 4 years, almost 5 years, since they tried to stage the illegal coup attempt in 2021, they were not having a chance to seize the political space or take control of the legitimacy of the country as much as they wanted to. I mean, if you look at even like you were talking about the ASEAN 5-point consensus, even in the ASEAN, Mayor Lai was not able to go and attend the summits. And his foreign minister, who is the second in line, the highest in ASEAN, was not able to go and attend any of those foreign ministers or the ASEAN ministerial meetings for the last 4 years. So what we can say for sure is that this illegal junta was recognized as illegal entity. And that's the very reason that they were not able to have the representation in the United Nations system at the highest level of representing Myanmar in UN General Assembly in New York, or even in Geneva at the Human Rights Council. They couldn't actually enter the Human Rights Council since June 2021 session, because we as a civil society, we were so strong. We were informing to the council and make sure that the illegitimate, illegal junta representative cannot come and take the seat of Myanmar within the Human Rights Council. And we've been successful until so far. But with what you said, Go Tien, this is something that we need to look into, right? Because after, like what also our moderator talked about, what will happen in the post-Sham election, there will be a post-Sham election regime by February, March, April. And this is where this junta is going with the whole plan of this deception, not the election, but the plan of deception is to actually deceive the world to gain legitimacy from the international community. But then why do they actually need also the political legitimacy? Is it the only one? Of course not. Political legitimacy will actually let and allow them to have access to other things that they really need, which is, of course, the lifting of the sanctions. If they are able to gain some sort of political legitimacy from some part of the world, their next target will be lifting the sanctions from the United States, Canada, UK, EU, and others, including Australia. But of course, afterwards, their next step is to resume their international foreign investment. This is all in line, in the pipeline for them, that they want to actually take one step after another to achieve. But then like also, you hear from people at this corner and that corner, as much as I'm sure you hear, as much as I'm hearing, there are many people who are saying like, this Sham election can be an entry point for Myanmar to return to somewhat similar to the post-2010 democratic transition. And some are saying that even though we know this is a sham election, it's better to have it than not having it, so that the landscape have some kind of shifting. But of course, they don't look into deeper, like what kind of shift are we actually talking about? And I've been responding to this fanciful thinking of some of these Myanmar observers with some ground realities and some lesson learned from the past. So if I may share with you some of my thoughts from the current landscape realities in contrast from the post-2010 sham election. This is the second sham election, by the way. In 2010, the previous military regime leader Tan Shui, compared to Min Aung Hlaing, he was more or less a bit more strategic, in my opinion. He had this thinking of opening the country with some sort of power-sharing model with the democracy movement, particularly with Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD, as well as also opening the country's door to with the media freedom and also space for the civil society. And I think he and his advisors were smart enough to think that sharing some sort of power with Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD, opening the space to the media and civil society in all three fronts, they are going to definitely gain some international legitimacy, which they did. They really got it. But people from outside world who came back to re-engage fully with Myanmar at that time, what they didn't understand or know is there was already premeditated plan. The premeditated plan, even in the media sector and civil society sector, the Hontas people were already transforming themselves to become media as well as civil society. They were wearing masks of media and civil society. So when the spaces were opened up, of course people were happy. There were open media, open space for the civil society, but then many of the people internationally in particular didn't know. Those groups were already a part of the centralized system of the Myanmar military to actually play the game along with them. And then at the same time, there was this divide and rule peace agenda that was actually played by Tan Shui's regime in the name of quasi-military government led by Thein Sein at that time. It was the incentives versus the defeat. Some of the ethnic resistance groups were given incentives, such as the Karen, the KNU, while some others were given more of the military offensives, such as the Kachin, which was the diverse, which was the very different. In the past, Kachin were given the incentives, while the Karen were defeated with the focused strategies. So this divide and rule strategy that Myanmar military used all along the country's history has always been working. But I don't see that much after 2021. But then I'm not really feeling that confident yet at this point, because we have to wait and see what will happen after the post-sham election regime comes. But for now, what we can see is that time in post-2010 era, you will see, like, including Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD, basically join and play along the tune that was played by the junta, the military, and they play along the game, right? So we can see that the whole country now is in revolution, which is what we didn't have back in 2010. So that is the huge difference that we have. Back in post-2010, you had that the largest opposition of the country joining along the game of the military. At this point, we have the whole country is in revolution fighting against the military. And that time, the revolution forces or the resistance forces are mostly actually placed along the borderline with Thailand, India, China, and including in India side and China side and Bangladesh side and Thailand side. But now the revolutionary forces are right within the country. I think that's a huge difference of the landscape. But you will also see that revolution overall has more effective control over the Myanmar's land more than the military. That's the fact, and that's the reality. And I think this is something that international actors who think that post-2025 Sham election might actually give some opening up. That is going to be a very illusional, delusional thinking, which I would say no. There is independent civil society, remain to be very, very strong and determined, and they are all working so hard to advance the protection of human rights, even within the revolution time. Local humanitarians are filling in the gaps for the humanitarian aid delivery to the most vulnerable population that the UN agencies and INGOs are unable to have access, you see. And independent media, as we see here, very strongly remain and very determined for the freedom of media alongside the other actors, other sectors of their country. So now, let me share with you my last part that I really want to share with you. It's some of the experiences and lessons, key lessons that I learned from the international community's reaction after the post-2010 election time. That time, the international community branded that the opening as the velvet, smooth, democratic transition, which is very different than I saw. There were quite a few mistakes that I will say the international community had made back then. The first mistake, the international community shifted their policy towards Myanmar from giving the human rights democracy as first priority to economy and business and development agenda as the first priority. So no matter how people cry out on the ground for their land being grabbed, the international community was able to neglect that and then say the first priority is the business. And then you will also see another big mistake from the peace donors. Peace donors and the businesses, they are actually, you can see them in one basket together in many occasions, you see. The peace donors supported the military's one-sided peace agenda without even having other stakeholders come involved and discuss, including the NLD and EROs had no say over what the peace agenda that the military has set it up. The international peace donors, starting from Norway, poured the money in. And then the military dominated the peace agenda or the peace process. And the peace donors, not only that they poured the money into the hands of the Myanmar military, but guess what? They told us, the civil society, and the women organizations in particular, who actually trying to end the military's impunity and the military's decades-long use of rape and sexual violence as a weapon of war. We were advocating to end that violence. Guess what we were told by some of the donors? Please don't talk about it. If you talk about it out loud, it will disturb the peace process.
Your fan will be cut.
Yes. And we were seen as peace spoilers because we talk about these situations. And you can really see how that one-sided military's peace agenda were one-sidedly supported by the peace donors, knowingly the military is the dominant actor in the whole process. It doesn't matter. So now, I want to tell you the last point. This is what I'm going to be calling on the international community. I have warned the international community back in 2010. Let me share with you also my face-to-face experience with one of the diplomats from the EU, one of the EU countries. After I talked about all of the problems, and then he came and told me, Kenoma, what you were saying is true, all true, but we also want the same share that China is getting from your country. Aha. It's very clear by then what is the real agenda behind democracy and human rights. So, learning from that, now I'm going to warn the international community again, because I don't want them to make the same mistake. I don't want them to see the same mistake repeated after the post-2025 Sham election regime. Because some of them, I think, are looking into that opportunity. I won't be able to name the names now, but I think we will see by their own actions as the time comes. So I want to call on the international community, don't repeat the same mistakes that you have done in post-2010 election time, because your mistakes already led to further suffering of our country's people, as where we are seeing right now. That further entrenched the military's impunity and allow them to continue to commit all these international crimes and crimes against humanity and war crimes. And we want them to renounce these countries. We want them to renounce not only the Sham election as started today, but its result, because we already know what is coming anyway. I think it is for their own credibility of democratic countries that they need to take a clear stand with the Myanmar people. We want them to also increase targeted sanctions, particularly sales and transfer of arms and ammunition, especially aviation fuel and dual-use good energy, technology. And we want them to join the existing international accountability efforts at the ICJ and ICC to prosecute Myanmar and his junta under the international law. And we want the international governments to increase and retract their decisions to provide further channeling of the humanitarian aid through the local humanitarian actors that are acting independently from this military junta. And we need that. And we want the world to support that civil society and independent media to be able to do our very important job to make sure that our Myanmar people's revolution win in sooner time than later. With that, I end here. Thank you.
Thank you, Maoma. I try not to interrupt you, even though you talk a lot. That's really good, because I mean your remark is very blunt, brave, and outspoken, even for donors. You know, so I think Maoma talking about how even the Western countries, pro-democracy countries, are more interested in investment in Myanmar all the time. And then second one is peace, which is an industry in our country. You get a lot of cash and dollar coming from Norway and other countries. You find it out openly. So this is really true. So what will we see after the 2025 election? And then China's role. Whether the Western countries have been really investing or maybe supporting our pro-democracy movement, which have been crushed many times, repeatedly. But what are they really doing? Helping us or countering China in the region? This is a very good question. I don't really think I need to, discuss more. I think the Makioma remark and our suggestions for the international community can really provoke all of our audience here to raise questions if you want. I think we have a time limit. Now we are running out. So probably maybe 2 questions, or maybe not more than 3 questions. Very short, precise, and identify yourself, who you are, what is your organization. Make it short, no speech, please. Yes, please. Yes, someone can get it. Yeah. Thank you, Kusum. Sorry.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for the panelists. Very enjoying for this panel. I'm from Taiwan. I'm working for the PTS, like Taiwan Public TV. There's one question that actually is kind of like elephant in the room, especially for the China is helping the junta very obviously and very direct, which means they are helping the oppressor. And my question is, what do you think, or what do you suggest for AUG or for all the resistance force in the future? Is there any possibility to cooperate or get in touch with Taiwan in the future? Thank you.
Yeah. Please, Makioma, good time.
I think for the revolutionaries, we are all democratic living. We are all for the rights of the people, and then we should be cooperating with anyone around the world who are working for democracy and human rights. So that would be my short answer. It would be for either NUG or any revolutionary organization. So we should be principled first and foremost. So that I think we should be principled not just for the revolutionary period, but for the period after winning the election. We should be in principle. We should be principled actors in the war. So the reason we are fighting in this revolution is we want to make our country not be another transactional another country participating in the transactional world politics right now. We want our country to be the principal democratic, human rights loving country in the future. So that's my short answer to that.
Quick remark. Any question? One more, please. Oh, mic. Sorry.
Thank you for today. My name is Shigefumi Kitagawa from the Tokyo Shimbun newspaper. I have two questions. The first one is the military. What do you think the military will do after the election? Like releasing prisoners, including Aung San Suu Kyi, or acting like Tencent regime? The second one is what will happen in the civil war? So will the military propose ceasefire to different various groups? Well, will the fighting go on? Like this? Thank you.
Okay. It's okay.
Thank you for the question. So the scenario that you could build is the release of the political prisoners, including Aung San Suu Kyi, is definitely possible. Would that be after the formation of the quote-unquote so-called government, or right after the convening of the so-called parliament? We don't know yet. I think of course, it always goes with their calculation. Even in the 3 phases of the so-called election, we will be seeing, like after today, I'm sure they will review and then they will see what they need to make adjustment for the next phase, right? So along the different phases, I'm sure the release of the political prisoner is a part. But like whether that, like they will include Aung San Suu Kyi and the president, and how many will be released or all will be released, I think it goes with their own calculation, which hard to say for us right now. But what is very obvious for the people's movement is ready. They are very well aware they're not going to fall for that trap. It's just a matter for us to make sure that the international community don't fall for that trap. Of course, everyone will be happy and welcoming the release of all political prisoners, anyone, including Aung San Suu Kyi. We want to see them released. But that is not going to be, they are using the political prisoners as bait, right? Aung San Suu Kyi is like the largest bait or largest card. But we are in the revolution, as far as I listen to the people, including the young people, they are not going to fall for that kind of trap. They will continue what they need to do, while they will welcome their, country's leaders being released from the prison. That's one thing. Your next question is, will they...
Ceasefire.
Ceasefire, that's right. Right. Yes, the ceasefire is definitely a part of their plan, for sure. I'm sure you have seen it already, even in this year and last year, with China's pressure. So there was some kind of like a ceasefire that the junta offered with the groups in the north, but then they will never follow it anyway. So now the question is, will the junta, the post-Sham election regime, offer the nationwide, genuinely nationwide ceasefire? I would say definitely not. But they will still use the divide and rule again. They will use divide and rule between the EROs who continue to stay with the nationwide ceasefire agreement from the past time, and those who already left from the NCA. And they will also play between the EROs who are fighting now and the PDFs who are fighting now. And they will try to divide and rule as much as they can. But again, I think our people by generations already learn this divide and rule. But when it comes, sometimes it's difficult. And we have to also keep in mind that their divide and rule is not only on the ground during the fighting, but they will be also divide and rule between the civil society, media as well. We will see some of those elements in the coming time. But saying that, will the revolution be ready for that? Because of our intergenerational fight against this military, I sincerely hope the current revolution from all generations and all sectors will be ready for that kind of divide and rule approach.
Thank you. We are really running out of time. But what? Oh, you want to ask a question? Of course, you are the main. Okay, please. Maybe please keep it short. Keep it short. Find it wrong, find it wrong. Yeah. It is quite loud enough.
You've been talking about Russia providing propaganda narratives to Myanmar. I would like to ask about specifics of how they do it and which forms it takes. If Russia is opening, I don't know, news agencies in there or providing specialists for Junta, how to manage propaganda. And in general, I would love to ask about the role of Russia and what Russia may gain in return. As much as I know, there is big military cooperation. And also, since this summer, we were receiving some messages about citizens of Myanmar participating in the war in Ukraine. And do you think Junta might allow Russia to take Myanmar people to the war for exchange for some benefits it needs? Thank you.
Emily, you want to take that question or maybe you have to?
Take the other one. Yes,
Quick,
to answer the first portion of the question about Russian propaganda, we have evidences and cases of the Myanmar military sending scholars to Russia for a very long time. So it has been decades that was ongoing, and I think it's still ongoing. So that's I think that's a very big evidences of being Russia supporting Myanmar on the information front. And then I also talk about pro-military influencers propagating disinformation and military narratives on social media. And cases we have seen this type of pro-military social media influencers having relationship with people from like Russia, Myanmar friendship associations and things like that. So there are already evidences on how is Russian being influencing and supporting Myanmar for propaganda and information for a very long time. Yeah.
Just to quickly add on Russia's kind contribution to the battlefield. They obviously also have been supplying the junta with drones to attack the EAO's control area. Those drones are much harder to jam, much harder to develop countermeasures against them compared to China's Chinese drones, and that usually came from Russia or Belarus, which is Russia's partner. What will Russia get out of that? If you follow the news already, MOU has been signed between the junta and Russian government on nuclear power plant exploration. So that's already one key thing. And also the Dawei seaport interest, right? That also some of the clear signal that's already been established between the collaboration between Russia and Myanmar junta.
Thank you. Kosome, you want to add something very quick?
Thank you. I know we don't have much time, but okay, we are looking at elections, I mean so-called elections that begins today, and we are also looking at beyond this. My question that I've been wondering about is, okay, how about the future or near future or fate of those IDPs, internally displaced peoples, millions of people, 7.4 to 7.56 millions refugees, migrant workers, for example, in Thailand, 7 million plus Burmese migrant workers in Thailand, and Rohingyas, 1 million plus. What will happen with them? What is their future? In next, can we sort of foresee their future? Will there be any betterment than what it is already bad?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Gosomye. Let's touch on the IDPs first, yeah? Because since the IDPs are fleeing from the military's violence, like airstrikes and ground attacks, within the country, that means we need to take care of these people. And very simply, because the UN agencies and INGOs who are, in MOU with the military junta, don't have access to these most vulnerable population, and the junta will not give them access. So every international aid going to the hands of the military junta is not getting to the people. So really, like for the last 4 years, the civil society and other like-minded private donors are the one trying to fill in the gap. And we have to continue to do that. I mean, in doing that, one of the approach is, like the way how we are supporting the communities on the ground is self-sustainable local initiatives. You support them. Basically, like the people are not waiting for the UNHCR WHO to bring the things for them, but they are actually looking into what is available within their communities to make it sustainable, and that they can, even that they have to flee, they will still have access to food, even though there is a food scarcity, as we all know, like in Rakhine and even in Karani. But our country, if we can be innovative enough and we are more like strong enough in supporting each other, like we've been doing. I mean, look at the diaspora, how active they are, right, from all over the world. So they are filling in those gaps too. So together, we will have to continue to take care of those who are in the country, because the INGOs, UN agencies will not be able to have that access. But then, if you talk about the refugees, we will still need to push the international donors to really share the responsibility among them. I mean, for the 1 million Rohingya refugees on Bangladesh camps, we have to do the same thing. Keep advocating for the international donors to really share that responsibility. But look at Thailand, because you have those who are in the refugee camps, but a lot more outside the refugee camps, right? And I think that is where we have a gray area where we need to figure out how the Thailand government and Thai authorities will be able to look into a temporary protection solution. And that is where Thai government will also need help from the international community and international donors, which we all need to join the Thai government and advocate for together. That's what I would say. I don't think there is any safe and secure voluntary potential return to Myanmar, not next year, at least not next year, and not in 2027. Even though the revolution wins, it will be within the country. The revolution will have to take care of what is needed, such as the interim or the transitional authority, governing body, and all of the people within the country, including those 4 million internally displaced persons, to be able to return home first, before we are able to bring those outside the country to come back in from like Thailand border or India border. That's how I see it.
Okay, time's out. Bet. Let me steal a little bit of more time to wrap up this session. Because we have a lot, we talk a lot, and I think you have a lot of lessons to take away. But at the same time, a lot of things, if we continue to discuss, it will be endless. So maybe one word or one phrase from each of my panelists So maybe I will start with the okay, Matai. Just one word. It's very important. What do you feel when I ask that question to you? Simple question, probably. One word or two words or one phrase. What do you want to suggest the people inside the country in terms of digital repression? Because, of course, because of this election, hundreds of people were arrested because they just posted their feeling or whatever about the against the election. So what would be your suggestion for them? One word, one sentence, please.
Resist will be my word.
Thank you. Emily, talking about ASEAN and other countries. The sad thing is ASEAN and international community cannot stop any kind of violence, airstrikes, attacks on the civilian people in villages conducted by the military junta over the past 5 years. So if they are silent, if they don't speak loudly or strongly, if there is no impact out of their talk or art, they are accomplices. So what will you say to the international community and the neighboring countries?
Do better, be better.
Thank you. Goten?
In short, beyond this election, we should not look into whom the junta would release after this election. We should look into what kind of repressive law would junta keep after this election. Election law, election protection law, cyber security law, and others endless repressive law. So that's the key.
Thank you. Recently, Gosome raised the question, there is hope in the future. I mentioned it at the end of especially 31st of March. And then the junta will form a new government. And we will see the new government April 1st, exactly. And I call it, recently I wrote one story, I call it in Burmese, Taipong Wit Sit Anashin, which means that the military dictator are in traditional Burmese jacket. So Ma Oma, what will be your response to that question? Is there any hope? And then what will be your strong message to the international community again, which they never probably, I don't know, we don't know, and will be really helping us to restore our democracy?
Oh yeah, if we are to talk about the hope, there's always hope. I think hope is something that is not for us to feel good of what we are doing. Hope is something what is right. I think that's what we are doing. So definitely there is hope, and especially for the young generation who have made immense sacrifice on the ground for saying that their generation has to be the last to suffer from this military tyranny, and they're going to end this military tyranny and dismantle this tyranny with their generation must be the last. I think we have to really believe in that, because they are not saying as a rhetoric, they are showing that to us with their own actions. So yes, definitely a hope. My message to the international community, you have seen the same wine in the old bottle in 2010. Let's not be deceived again, but let's be decisive. And let's not the junta play you a fool again in this time, because once you are playful because you don't know, but if you continue to be playful again and again, it's just simply because you just probably want to be a part of it. In that case, you are not helping the Myanmar people, and you are not on the side of the Myanmar people's fight for dignity and humanity. And we are not asking you to fight for us. We're just asking you to take the right side of the humanity. That's all we are asking. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think my last word is, I think whatever happened in the coming months or in years in our country, our Burmese people, all of the people, ethnic people, are really strong and always, they are never down, never born, and they always come back. And that is, I think, the very encouraging spirit of our people, I think. So let's keep strong. Thank you, everyone.